Yeah, as Zulaikha mentioned, brief background on my father is the kind of personality he has. Is the It's obviously the complete reverse of the allegations that are put towards him. The Dawa stores that he operated um, was one of the center points in his life. He devoted much time, effort towards that, to the extent that numerous days would go by him burning DVDs, making preparations for the following Dawa day. Um, he got he got pestered by the police and the council on numerous occasions with different excuses. Um, the council would, on a regular basis, tell him that he was blocking the public pathway, and he has to move, basically put an end to the stall. And the police would come down, about 12, 15 officers every other week, trying to kind of scare him and others off, raiding the stall, just making a scene, really wasting time, taxpayers' money on a regular basis. And my father, he kind of got sick of this whole idea of getting raided by the police, so he invited the police to the house because he felt confused that he's not doing anything wrong. His main purpose is to build bridges, but yet it's him that's being targeted for for no reason. So the police come to the house. They, they talked over a cup of coffee, and they come to a conclusion that there was nothing incriminating in the CDs or DVDs, because if there was, then he wouldn't be so open. Um, so they allowed him to. They didn't pester him for a while, and it was kind of, I would see it as a challenge for them to get this guy behind bars and shut him up, because he was doing too much damage um, to them, in the way where the message that he was putting forward was the absolute reverse to what the general public was seeing on the media. It's saying Islam is a religion of violence, whereas the leaflets he was showing is the absolute reverse. The leaflets that were forwarded show that the rights women have in Islam, how the similarities with Christianity and many other faiths, which is why a close friend of his is a church minister. Um, so these challenges, obviously the police, they found it difficult to get him off the street, so they deployed two undercover officers. Um, One was called Simon, the other Ray. They approached the stall on different occasions, pretending to show an interest in Islam. Just like every other person off the street, my father and others done the usual thing, had a brief conversation, gave him literature, and this went on. Well, they took the literature, they left. The following week, it became a regular thing for the two undercover officers to come to visit the stall, exchange information, just have a little dialogue and leave. So they seemed pretty interested in the religion. So my father invited them to the house, the usual way, as Zulaikha said, had tea with them, spent time with them. A few months down the line of their deployment, they were ready to accept Islam. One did at my house and the other at a local mosque. So they become hypocrites within 3 weeks, about a few weeks of the deployment, portraying himself as a Muslim to the whole community, deceiving the community at large. They changed the whole attire, the lifestyle. They stopped drinking. They grew fist-length beards. They attend Quran classes. They'd be praying 5 times a day. And I felt, me as a born Muslim, being raised in a Muslim household, I felt ashamed of myself that these guys have just come into the religion and it's only been a few weeks, few months, and they're literally dragging me to the mosque. They're dragging me to the Quran classes, and obviously I felt good for them, but at the same time, I felt really embarrassed of myself. The deployment went on for a year, so these guys would literally call us every day, a few phone calls at least about 5 calls a day. He'd be calling me, my father, and a few of the our co-defendants. Every conversation, every contact they had, not with just with us, but anyone in the community, was recorded on a device from morning to night. They had recording devices with them. They'd record them, and all the information was gathered for the whole year. Now, if there was a terror gang that existed, we were alleged to have been recruiting vulnerable people from the streets of Manchester and sending them overseas to Afghanistan to fight against coalition troops. This was the allegation that was put against me, my father, Matthew Newton, and Isra Malik, as well as a local imam. Now, to break it short, the operation lasted for a whole year. We were all on intense investigation, and it was said that the local imam, he was the spiritual kind of guide of this terror gang, was at the peak of the gang. Then below him was my father. Then it was myself, Isra Malik, and Matthew Newton that were the foot soldiers, trying to bring new recruits into the terror plot. When we were arrested, the imam of the local mosque that was seen to be the head of this terror plot was not even charged. He was released within 7 days. Now, the first question rises that you spent millions on this undercover operation. Why is it that the head of the terror gang has not even been charged? Myself, I was arrested with my father. I spent a short time in prison. I lived in bail. The condition of the bail literally turned my life upside down. It was on the peak of destroying my marriage and family life in general. I was acquitted on a unanimous decision within the British courts. Yet it was said that I was the closest associate to my father in this terror plot. My father himself has been given 4 life sentences, and during his trial, his barrister that was representing him at the time has been done on contempt of court. This shows that my father did not get a fair trial within the British courts. He was done on contempt of court, and he was fined a heavy amount and banned from for working for a few months. I mean, it's an intense operation that's taken place, and it will take a while to actually get deep and get information on the case. So we do have a website and a Facebook page that are running, but the main focus is on getting justice for my father and ensuring that he gets a fair trial. That's all we asked for. The charge that was against me was preparing for acts of terrorism. I couldn't really get my head around it because I didn't really encourage anyone to go on to become a terrorist, nor did I assist in any way. But when I was arrested, when the evidence was put forward to me, then I realized that my jokes were taken out of context, to the extent where on one occasion, undercover officer Simon approached my market stall, and he seemed a bit depressed and stuff. So I tried to cheer him up, and it was just an off-the-cuff remark. I had a packet, because I sell Arabian products. I had a package in my hand that it had a niqab in it, a face veil similar to what my sister's wearing, and I just showed him the thing and the item and said, I sell Al Qaeda wear, not realizing that I would end up in court, in jail, and my life would be turned upside down. I mean, there's many jokes of this nature that are widely available on YouTube and many other media channels. So why is it that I, just by one off-the-cuff remark, I'm put into some major operation? That's just one joke. There was a small book that I gave to the undercover officer, which is later called Fortress of a Muslim, and that's basically a handbook that you can find in every house, in any Muslim house, and they're sold on shelf. But because I gave him that book, it was said that my intention was to radicalize him. So he learns the prayers off by heart, which will encourage him to jihad. On one occasion, my father, when he would distribute CDs, undercover officer Simon said to me, he complained that, I don't have a CD player. So I thought, as a Muslim, he's a brother, he's just come into Islam, his family's disowned him, he's an ex-alcoholic, he needs help. So for me, I thought it's of duty for me to help him. It doesn't matter if he's Muslim or not, if he's in hardship, you help. So I gave him a hi-fi system, which was actually my wife's. She was out, I just gave it as a gift. And that was used as evidence against me, saying that I was encouraging him for preparation of acts of terrorism. But I got terrorized before that by my wife anyway.
Okay.
On one occasion, I remember I was in the car with Simon. He asked me to drop him off home. And naturally, when you're on your own with this person, the conversation will start off on any random subject that will lead to politics, and it will lead to jihad. That was the pattern of the conversation, looking back at it now.
What's amazing through our case, I see, is the fact that something so innocent and, goodness is actually turned around and made out to be something so sinister.
Muslim hospitality is seen as a threat.
Yeah.
Muslim hospitality is seen as a form of radicalization, to the extent where it was said in our trial that the way we lured these people into our terror plot was by being generous towards them, was by feeding them, was by spending time with them, when it was the absolute reverse. It was them, two undercover officers, that would be pestering us. Can I meet you? I want to spend time with you. I want to come to your house. Let's do this, let's do that. And I got sick of their calls to the extent where I'd switch my phone off, because I'd be outside on road, I'd fear bumping into them because they lived in the area. Obviously, it's a duty, like I said, for me and others to assist them. But when someone's continuously ringing you on a daily basis, minimum 5-6 times, and they want to meet you every day, it just becomes difficult. But yeah, it was them. The question is, who was radicalizing who? They would come into the house, put YouTube on, type in Muslim suffering in Palestine, look at the video, cry his eyes out, and he'd be saying to my father, I want to go in jihad, what can I do? My father would say, go to the mosque, pray. That's not enough. Father would say, go attend Quran classes to bring peace in yourself. So these suggestions my father was forwarding to him to divert his mind. It was said in the court that my father was direct him to the mosque because this would strengthen him from his faith, and then it would make it easier for him to go on jihad. So literally their operational objective was set anyway, and it was just trying to mold everything into it and fabricate the evidence.
The person I was back in November 2009 and the person I am today are two total different personalities. I mean, what I have endured in the past over 6 years is incredible, really, and what I've seen and experienced, it's there's nothing like it. The changes, there has been so many, and there's so much that we've had to sort of adapt to and change to and learn. It's been really difficult. I mean, and saying that, to be honest, it feels like our life, or my life, halted. It stopped back in November 2009, and because it was such a sudden change, it seemed like a dream what has gone on in the past 6-7 years, but it's been extremely difficult and stressful, because it's difficult enough having a loved one snatched away from you so brutally and thrown behind bars. At the time, it was my father and my brother. I had only just got married. My husband actually is an English revert, a new Muslim himself. So you can just imagine how damaging this whole experience has been for me personally as well. At the time I was thinking, maybe, can I even trust my own husband? Is he maybe another undercover officer? So, the damaging effect of these, cases like which have undercover officers is detrimental, not only, you know, personally or on a family, but as a community as a whole, because we were even shunned from our own community. So we have the, you know, our loved ones taken away from us, we have the media against us, we have the community shun us, to the extent that even men were barred from the mosques in Manchester itself. You know, this whole, there's no smoke without fire, and you know, they're successful because they want this fear to be instilled within the community, and it happens, it works. But then at the same time, there's people who we have never known or seen in our life who recognize this injustice, that this has, you know, this definitely something has gone wrong. We know this man. Not one person was, you know, actually spoke against my father. The police went across Manchester to find witnesses or one statement of anybody who they could use within the trial to speak against my father. Nobody had a bad word to say against him. In fact, one of the core witnesses who stood in support of my father was a Christian minister who visits my father till this day within the prison itself. Why would he put his reputation at stake if my father was a terrorist? So, you know, even though it's been extremely difficult, but there is also the blessings that we cannot, you know, ignore at all, that has come from this experience. So it's been a real, and it still is, a life-changing experience.
I don't think there's much more I can add into that, but
well, you went through the prison, didn't you? And
there's been so much to go. Obviously, being arrested, being thrown into prison, having your people distancing themselves from you, living on bail conditions that are just totally unreasonable. Yeah, the conversation we were having a conversation in a car, and he wanted he was trying to lead it onto jihad, and I told him straightforward that 9/11 as an example was completely wrong from a Muslim's perspective, because Islam forbids you from even killing an ant, let alone a human being, in the thousands. So if you want my opinion, then I'm totally against that act. When it comes to the court, I knew I had said this to him just in the back of my head. Even when I was arrested, I was going through the thousands of pages of transcript, trying to dig that out, that where is this conversation? And my lawyers, when they made like a kind of spreadsheet of all the conversations that have taken place, but that conversation for some reason was not recorded, and it was said there was some sort of something wrong, when something went wrong with the device, and he had to write it down from memory, and that conversation didn't exist. So I mean, they have an agenda, they have an aim, and they just break the law, the rules, you know, to fulfill the aim. They're not bothered who suffers, as long as they achieve the goal.